Hello, Internet. Welcome to Full Frontal Developer. No doubt you've seen some flashy web page content in your time and wondered how exactly is that done. Today, with only a few lines of code and a couple of simple files, we ourselves are going to create something super fantastic. So today's project, we're going to be working with APIs, and that's an application programming interface. We're going to be calling a different website and requesting information, and then using that information to populate our own web page. And it's going to come in the form of a dad joke. So to show you a finished version of the product, we're going to jump over here to the web page. And we have a don't laugh challenge, and we're going to get another dad joke. So this one was the first one that I pulled up. Did you know that ghosts call their true love their ghoul friend? So if we click on this button, we will source in a different joke. Why is Peter Pan always flying? Because he never lands. And we can click this button and get all sorts of random jokes that are actually being sourced from another website via that website's API. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into our Visual Studio. We have here open our three obligatory files, the index.html, the script.js, and the style.css. And this is not a very complicated website or web page to write, but it is very fun. So we'll go ahead and start with the body. Since this is HTML5, let's declare the doc type. And we'll start an HTML tag and define the language as English, like so. After that, we'll go ahead and start our header tags. So we'll have a header. And in here, we'll make a meta tag where we define the character set as being UTF-8 so that everything is transcoded properly. Like so. The next meta tag, we're going to define our viewport. And this is going to ensure that no matter which device is being used, it is sized and scaled correctly. So we'll define a name equals viewport, and content equals the width, which equals the device width, and the initial scale set to 1.0. Then we'll throw in a link to our style sheet, and that's going to be located at style.css. Finally, we'll add a title, and we'll just call it Dad Jokes. That should be everything we need in the header. After that, we'll go ahead and open up a body tag. And in the body tag, we're going to have a couple of divs. So the first div is going to be our container class. And within this div, we'll do an h3 title, and we'll call it Don't Laugh at These. And then below the title, we'll do another div tag. And in this div tag, we're going to give this an ID of joke so that we can reference it through our script. And we'll also give it a class equal to joke so that we can also style it. And for now, we'll just write waiting for joke because we actually have to call the API to get the joke. So in the meantime, we'll just have that as a filler. Then outside of that div tag, but within the outer div tag, we're going to define a button. We'll give the button an ID of joke button, joke BTN, and then a class of BTN so that we can style it and also reference it through our script. And this button is going to have the text that says get another dad joke, just like so. And then we can close out the button, close out the div, and then still within the body, we will define our script. The source is going to be equal to script.js. And that is pretty much everything we need in our HTML. So let's go ahead and save this. It won't look like much, but let's go ahead and open it up into our live server. And you see here, we don't really have much going yet, but we have barely begun. So let's bring this over here to the side so we can begin to style this and see how it takes shape. If we jump into our style.css, I want to point out that I actually have a couple of websites open. One of the most popular websites that I like to use, fonts.google.com, where you have access to a whole variety of different fonts. For this one, we're going to be using Roboto, and I'm just going to pick out a nice Roboto font with a nice weight. That'll be, let's say, we'll do a 400 weight right here. So I'm going to click on select this font. I'm going to import it. Now, I don't need the style tags because it is going right into our style.cs. We're just going to copy the import annotation right there. And then we'll make that the first line. All right, so then after that, let's do some universal styling. We're going to do box sizing. And we'll set that to border box. And then outside of that, let's style the body. So the entire body is going to have a background color. Where I've selected the background color is also going to be from another great website. This is color.adobe.com, where you have access to this fun little color wheel. And for the background color, I've picked out this fun kind of desaturated indigo right here. So it's going to be the hashtag 686DE0. So go ahead and punch that in there. 686DE0, like so. A nice soft kind of purplish blue. Then the font family, we're going to make sure that we're including what we've imported, which is Roboto. And then just define it as sans serif. After that, we're going to display flex. And then we're going to do a flex direction of column to keep everything that's going to be vertically in line. We're going to align items to center. We'll also justify content to center. And then we'll give it a height of 100 VH, 100 of whatever the device is being used to look at it. And we're going to hide our overflow so we don't see any scroll bars. We just want this to fill the entire page, but nothing more. Next, we will set all of our margins to 0 so that we can define the margins the way that we want to. And if we save that, pull that up, you see that it's starting to kind of take shape, but let's keep going. So now let's define let's style our container div specifically. So the container, we're going to have just a background color that's going to be just white. So we'll do FFF for the background. Border radius, let's give it a soft beveled edge of 10 pixels. And then we'll do a box shadow to make it look like it's kind of coming off the screen. We're going to do 0, 10 pixels, 20 pixels, and then the shadow we're going to define with an RGBA of 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then 0.1 for the alpha transparency. And then after that, we're going to do 0, 6 pixel, 6 pixel, RGBA, and then some further shading of 0, 0, 0, 0.1. Make sure that I have all of that right. Commas inside the box shadow, comma separating that one from the next one, and all zeros and 0.1 for the alpha for the shadow. Okay, that looks right. Let me save that and see if we've got anything coming up there. Okay, so it's starting to come into place. Next, we're going to do some padding. And the padding is going to be, let's say, 50 pixels, 20 pixels for top and bottom. And the text align, we're going to do center. And then we'll do a max width of 100%. We don't want this running off the screen. And then we'll do an initial width of 800 pixels. All right, we'll save that and pull that up and see if it's starting to take shape. It looks like it is. So we see that the max is 100%, but if we're able to get a larger viewport, it will allow itself to scale down to 800 pixels. So we're looking pretty good so far. Now after the container, let's go ahead and style our title tag and then our joke button. So our title tag is the H3. And we can give this a margin of 0. We'll give it some opacity. We'll do an opacity of 0.5. We're going to attack the letter spacing. We're going to make the letter spacing 2 pixels, just to make it a big, bold title. And then we'll go ahead and style our joke button, or our joke class, I should say. We're going to make the font size of our jokes 30 pixels. Let's do letter spacing equal to 1 pixel. And let's do a line height of 40 pixels. And we'll do a margin on the joke of being 50 pixels, top and bottom auto. And we'll give this one a max width of 600 pixels. And that will balance out the max width of 800 pixels that we've attacked the container with. So if we save this and open it up, you can see we've got something kind of nice here. We've got the spacing, the one-letter spacing in between all of the letters. And so it looks like a nice, respectable element there. So now after the joke, let's go ahead and define the button. That's going to be the BTN class that we've defined. We'll give this one a background color. And the background color I've chosen for this one I actually have right over here. It's going to be this other sort of purplish color, the 9F68EO. We'll just copy and paste that. Right there. It's going to be a nice kind of bright purple. And then we'll do the color of the text. It's just going to be equal to white, so that'll just be FFF. We're going to give it a border of 0. We don't want to see any border on the button. And then we're going to give it a beveled border radius of 10 pixels so that it sort of matches the container. We're going to give this one a box shadow as well. This box shadow is going to be 0, 5 pixels, 15 pixels. And all of this has to do with just the offset of the shadow in the X, Y, and Z. And then the RGBA is going to define the shadow itself. And so that's going to be a black shadow. So we're going to go 0, 0, 0. And then the alpha transparency is just going to be a very soft alpha of 0.1. And then some further definitions, just like the other one, 0, 6 pixel, 6 pixel. RGBA for the shadow is going to be 0, 0, 0, and then 0.1. And that should give it a nice shadow. Let's add the padding so that we can actually see the shadow show up. 14 pixels, and we'll do 40 pixels top and bottom. Then we're going to do a font size. For the button, we'll give it a font size of 16 pixels. And then let's make sure that when we hover the cursor over it that we get the pointer. So let's do cursor pointer. That should be everything we need for the button. Let's go ahead and jump in here and see what that looks like. All right, so now you can see it's starting to take shape. We do have a nice kind of soft shadow there, just barely, and we got the finger that pops up whenever we hover over the button. So this is looking a lot like our finished product already. So just a little bit more styling, and then we'll get into the functionality. We're going to do the button when it's active, and so we're going to focus on its active state. We're going to do a transform, and all we want it to do is we just want it to scale down just barely. We want it to kind of look like it's kind of shrinking just a touch when we push it, so it's kind of scaling down. So we're going to do a scale of 0.98, just barely 98% of its size. And then the button under focus, we're going to just remove the outline. So we'll give it an outline of 0, like so. All right, and I believe that should be everything we need. We'll just do a quick click. You see how it kind of just scales down just a touch to make it look like we're pushing on it. And this is looking pretty good. So now let's go ahead and jump into the script.js and get the functionality going. This is actually going to be just a couple lines of code, but it's going to be a little bit complex, something a little bit more complex than the other web pages that we've done. So let's define a constant called the joke element, and this is going to be the div that we're going to populate. We're going to set this equal to the document, and we're going to get element by ID, and we've given it the ID of joke. And then we're going to define a second constant, and this is going to be the joke button. And the joke button is going to be equal to the document get element by ID, and we've called this one joke BTN, like so. So now that we have those two elements sourced into our JavaScript, let's take the joke button and add an event listener. And this is going to be a click listener. And whenever it's clicked, we want it to generate joke, which is going to be a function that we're going to write right here. So generate joke. What we need to do is, within this function, we need to define an asynchronous function, because under the assumption that it's going to take a minute for the joke to be generated, that it's going to take a minute for it to source the joke from the website, we don't want the user interface to hang at all. We want everything else to keep functioning. So we're going to define this as an asynchronous function. We're going to generate joke. And within this function, we're going to define a constant that we're going to call config, because we're going to have to do a little bit of configuration in order to source it from the API from the Dad Joke website. And this config is going to involve defining a header, which is going to be an object that will have the key is equal to accept, and the value is going to be equal to application/JSON. And this is just telling the browser that what we're going to be receiving is going to be in the form of JSON, and it should be parsed that way. And so don't be surprised when you see JSON being accepted. That's what we're actually expecting. And so outside of that constant definition, we're going to define another constant. This is going to be the response. We're going to set it equal to await. We're going to use the fetch command because we're going to be fetching it from the API from the other website. And the website is https://icanhasdadjoke.com. And we're going to pass through, in addition to this, the config object that we made, which is basically telling it expect this to be returned with JSON. All right, so that's the response. Let's define another constant that we're going to have as being the data that's going to come back. And we'll set this equal to, and we'll tell it to await. So don't rush, but when this response comes back in the form of JSON, set it equal to the data. And then we're going to take the joke element, and we're going to set the inner HTML equal to the data that we get back. Let's see, data joke. All right, excellent. So it looks like we've got everything here correct. I'm sorry. Yes, that's right, data joke. Okay, so I think this is everything that we need. It looks like it's good. Let's see if this is going to work. Okay, and I think I saw something that we missed here. I forgot to include the parentheses with our function definition. Let me save that and see if that did it. Ah, there we go. All right, perfect. So now, what is a tornado's favorite game to play? Twister. We click on this and it calls the API. The call to the API asks for something that looks like JSON. The JSON contains the joke, and then we set the inner HTML to the joke, which is what animal is always at a game of cricket? A bat. I'm not sure I understand that one. We'll get another dad joke, another dad joke, another dad joke. All right, and so that is how you create a div element that calls to an API. So hopefully this was fun and educational. Look forward to seeing everyone back again in the next video. And of course, just like always, the source code for this is available on the GitHub through a link in the description. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.